doing? Well, I hope. We're about to get started. Hopefully, my other device doesn't give me any issues since I can't read off of stuff to you guys from off my phone. Just give me a second, 'cause I am literally touching some grass while gonna read this to you guys. Literally, I'm talking crisscross applesauce. What y'all know about that? What y'all know about being posted up outside on some one with the nature type ish and just be crisscross applesauce in your element just chilling? What do y'all know about that? Hmm? I think that's something we all should do more often. Not necessarily the actual crisscross applesauce ordeal, that's my thing, but definitely the touching of the grass. Oh, shoot. There's a lot of folks that just need to get a grip and they just simply don't know where to begin. If that makes any sense. But anywho, we're going to be talking about ambiguous grief. It's very interesting to me. Very interesting. It's something I want to talk about. So that's what we're going to do. Say we got about 30 minutes to get it done. While I'm sitting in the sun. So why not? I'm literally posted up right now, chilling. And I like it. It's very relaxing. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I don't have my headphones in. Hold on. Even though there's nobody here, so we're good. Ha ha ha. I don't mind that either. I don't mind that either. Okay, so let's get started. I might put my headphones in, but it's probably too late now. It's gonna mess it up, I'm sure. I'm sure of it. So we're just gonna rock out. If you can't hear me, or if you're having difficulties hearing me, just let me know. And we'll go from there, okay? Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Hey, Trace-spectives, good morning. Hey, Uncle L, good morning. How are you guys doing? Well, I hope. We're going to be discussing ambiguous grief because it's a serious thing. And I don't think it's really something that is acknowledged properly, because a lot of times when we think about grief or grieving someone, it's because they have passed away. You would assume, not everyone obviously would assume that, but I would assume before I came across this that that would be the only type of real grief. But and I did a short about this before I even actually even looked it up to see if it was a thing. And what was I saying? What did I say in that short? I think I said like what did I say? I forget. But basically to sum it up, it hits different when you're grieving somebody who hasn't died, who is still alive. You know what I mean? That's a different type of grief, in my opinion. 'Cause obviously, if somebody dies or passes away and you're grieving them, that's sad and that's unfortunate, but they're no longer here. And you know that, you know what I mean? That completely differs than you grieving someone who is still, you know, on this earth. They just not a part of your world anymore, so to say. So we're going to get into it. Give me a second, guys. In the meantime, how are y'all doing this morning? In the meantime, in between time, how are y'all doing? Okay. And can y'all hear me good? Please let me know if you can hear me good. All right, so it says ambiguous loss is is a often misunderstood type of grief stemming from unclear losses, lacking closure, such as when a loved one is physically absent. And the examples they gave for that would be like if someone is missing, if they're kidnapped, God forbid, um, as well as just a simple, a loss of a friendship, a loss of a relationship, those type of things. So that would be if a loved one is physically absent. And then it says, or psychologically absent, meaning dementia, addiction, or mental illness, because they're there, but they're not there anymore, if that makes sense. That's really messed up. That's sad. And I've seen people go through that firsthand. I feel like that dementia really hits different too, especially if you're caring for, even if you're not doing the day by day care for your loved one who has dementia, even if they're in a facility and you go and visit them. That's just a heartbreaking thing that you know them and remember them fully, but they don't know you at all. Or in some cases, you may remind them of somebody from their past, so then they'll start calling you that person's name and thinking that you're that person. And they said this was coined by Dr. Pauline Boss, who I believe she's a therapist. Says this gone but not for sure, or here but not here experience, excuse me, causes intense unresolved emotional strain, including depression, anxiety, and relationship conflict, as it prevents traditional grieving. Because it's as opposed to somebody who, is your loved one that passed away, this type of grief is kind of hard to come to term with, if that makes sense. Because like I said, they're gone, but they're still here. So I can see how that could prevent the quote unquote traditional grieving. Okay, it says types of ambiguous loss. Types of ambiguous loss. I appreciate y'all rocking with me. Let's see. Physical absent, physically, but psychologically present. The person is gone. For example, a missing person, someone who's kidnapped, incarcerated, a military deployment. That definitely hits different. But loved ones are uncertain if they are alive or will return. Okay? Psychologically absent, but physically present. The person is physically there, but emotionally or cognitively gone, like we were talking about. For example, Alzheimer's, dementia, addiction, traumatic brain injury, or severe mental illness. We discussed on this channel um, the different types of mental illness that exist. We didn't go over all of them, but we definitely dedicated a few different lives to that, because mental health to me is the most important type of health, because everything starts at the dome. regardless if we acknowledge or accept that or not. Everything starts at the top. So let's see. Let's see. And in the physically absent but psychologically present, they mentioned missing person, and in that they mentioned missing person, kidnapped, incarcerated, military deployment. But I also want to add to that the loss of a friendship and the loss of a relationship because that hits different for people. You know what I mean? That hits very different for people, especially if there wasn't any quote unquote closure provided or seeked. You know what I mean? Because some people just don't provide any real closure to anything. It's just a dub. And then you have the type of people who are willing to provide the closure if you feel like you need it, but you have to seek it. And there's a lot of people who have too much pride, you know, to seek that type of closure that they just also they need so badly, you know. So there's that, and I want to make sure I add that as well for sure. Let's see. Symptoms of ambiguous grief. Ambiguous grief is complex and often feels frozen because there is no clear ending. Symptoms include deep confusion and uncertainty about the relationship or status, emotional exhaustion, anxiety or depression, guilt, anger, or shame for grieving someone who is still alive, decision paralysis and difficulty moving forward with life, feeling stuck in the grieving process due to lack of closure. We just discussed that real quick. And we just went over the symptoms of, ambiguous grief because we're trying to learn, or in some cases, relearn what is this. So I read the definition that they gave for us as to what that is. We went over the two types of ambiguous loss. Uh, Went over the symptoms of ambiguous grief. And it says how to cope with ambiguous loss. Coping involves learning to live with the uncertainty rather than seeking an ending that may not come. That's deep. Coping involves learning to live with the uncertainty rather than seeking an ending that may not come. So they said first, name the loss. Identify and acknowledge that the loss is real, even if it's not a traditional death. Because, like I said, most times when people think about grief or grieving someone, you instantly go to somebody passed away or died or was unalive or whatever have you, right? There's not many times where one will have someone say to them, I'm sorry for your loss if they're grieving someone who has Alzheimer's, if they're grieving someone who has dementia, if they're grieving someone who has been overtaken by drugs, um, who has mental health issues that has, taking them over, who has lost a friend that they were close to, who has lost a partner that they were close to, and not lost in the way of they died, lost as in they're no longer in your life, and vice versa. That hits different for people, especially if you had a strong relationship with them. You know what I mean? That hits very different. And I wonder how many times has someone or people gone through this, and then they verbalize this to the people that are in their life, and they kind of shoot it away like on some, oh, you'll be all right type mess. It's not that big of a deal. Whoop de doo. As opposed to how they would embrace someone who is grieving someone who died, if that makes sense. Hold on. That's another reason why I think it's important to talk about these type of things, because like I always say, even if it's something that doesn't apply to your current life, you know, it may very well apply to you in the future. It may very well apply to somebody that you have in your life that you do care for and that cares for you, and they may be experiencing something like this. So understanding, these type of things could help the process go a lot smoother and better for you if you are experiencing this, or if you are experiencing it secondhand because somebody that you care for is experiencing this. And you don't ever want to make them feel like their feelings and what their, and their emotions are not valid, or the stage of grief that they are going through or experiencing is not valid when it is. It's just, different than what, you may be used to or accustomed to. So let's see. We're going to go over how to cope with ambiguous loss. So the first one was name the loss, identify and acknowledge that the loss is real, even if it's not a traditional death, right? The second is find meaning. Redefine the relationship with the person or situation. Redefine the relationship with the person or situation. Okay. Temper expectations. That word expectations, mm, temper expectations. Recognize that you can feel both happy and sad simultaneously, and that's acceptable. You know, seek support. Discuss feelings with trusted friends or counselors to combat isolation. That one is important. That one is very important. Because I don't know if you guys ever heard the saying or the verse, no man is an island. I wish I could put in the chat and really work on my phone the way I would like to. But if you never heard that verse or that saying before, look it up. No man or woman is an island. Okay? We weren't put here to have to be in situations where we have to sort and figure out and go through everything on our own. And it's really not healthy to it really isn't healthy to store stuff in. You're going to snap. Now, the level or the extent in which you're going to snap, that differs. But you're going to snap nonetheless if you just constantly bottle your stuff up and isolate yourself. You can't do that. The show must go on. And that is a hard truth. We can drop that in a hard truth bucket. The show must go on. And that's if you're experiencing traditional, quote unquote, traditional grief, or if you are experiencing the type of grief that we are discussing. Either way, the show must go on. And the world don't stop spinning for nobody or nothing. And the last thing you want to do is find yourself being stuck like a Sims character or like a game character that's just in idle mode, waiting to be activated. That's the last thing you want to do. Hold on. That's the last thing any of us want to do. Hold on. All right. Huh. What the world? All right. Tracepective says, um, I was I was my grandmother's caregiver for several is it several years or several months? Before she transitioned a few a few a few years, for several years. She had dementia. I'm sorry, Trey. I mourned her for years before I lost her. I'm telling you, and it hits different. It hits different. And in your case, you were her caregiver. You didn't quote unquote drop her off on nobody else in nobody's facility. And I understand why some people have to do that, because it's just not realistic all the time that one will be able to do what you were able to do. So that is definitely a blessing. That is definitely a blessing. Um, and it does hit different. I can just imagine the different stages that you had to experience with her and the patience that you had to have for certain things. And I'm definitely sorry that you had to experience that, and I'm definitely sorry for your loss. That crap hits different. And I hope that you had a good support system, regardless if you needed it or not, that understood fully what you were experiencing. Let's see. Hey, little runt buddy. Good morning. Good morning. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for coming. Hey, Carlos. He said, "Good day, world." Hey, Chef. What's up? How are you doing? Well, I hope. Thank you for coming. So let's continue, guys. I can't even see. I don't even have my daggone device charged up properly. Like I said, I was going to. See how that works, guys. So let's see. Okay. And the last one, awesome as usual. I love that. The last way they gave for us to cope with ambiguous loss is focus on self-care. Focus on your own life and stability. Focus on your own life and stability. Because if you're not good, if you don't make sure that you're good, you're not going to be able to be good for anybody else. And that's just a fact. That's just a fact. And also, like I said, the show must go on. The show must go on. You can't allow yourself to be over taken by this grief. You cannot allow yourself to be overtaken by it. Hold on. Damn it, I was muted for that whole thing? That's ridiculous. You guys didn't hear none of that. That just made me upset. Jeesh Louise. That just really made me upset. I didn't even realize I was, freaking muted. That's annoying. That is so annoying. I'll read this part again just in case. So it says impact on relationships. Ambiguous loss can cause significant relational strain. It can cause people to question their roles. For example, no, I ain't go to no, but how I don't go to the bathroom if I'm outside touching grass? Silly. I don't even know how. Be quiet. For example, am I still a wife or husband? And in some cases, you know, you're not married, but you're with that person. Am I still a wife or a husband, or am I a caregiver? And in reality, you're both. Duh. And even if that person is not, um, I think people get marriage and being someone's part and get the concept of being in a marriage or being in a relationship all misconstrued. Like, even if this person is not experiencing any type of, brain trauma, mental health illness, any of those things that would have them be there but not really be there. Yes, you are a caregiver of the sorts when you are in a relationship with somebody or if you're married to somebody. Duh. That doesn't mean that you are like taking care of them and all that other stuff. But yeah, they are your person. Duh. But I understand how that can be straining on somebody in this and what we're talking about. And it says it may lead to social isolation as friends may not understand the complicated nature of the loss. And then it says for duration, ambiguous loss rarely follows a linear path with a set end date. It is a chronic, unfolding experience that can last for years or indefinitely, requiring ongoing adaptation. I can't believe I was on freaking mute that whole time. And I think that was the only part that y'all didn't hear. I think you guys heard the other parts that I read. So, yeah, what I was saying was that is another reason why I definitely encourage people to seek out any type of counseling, therapy, anything. And I encourage that totally separate from this conversation that we're having. But when it comes to what we're discussing, definitely, because like I always say, and it sounds harsh or rough, but it's just so true. We all have a plight. We all have a plight. So while you're over there unloading everything that you're experiencing, when it comes to your ambiguous grief, or vice versa, if somebody is doing that to you, it can be heavy. It can be very heavy because they have their own plight, you know? And obviously, they love you, they care for you, they want to be there for you. But sometimes we have to know, and it's all of us, that when you unload on people, that can be a lot. And that's where having a therapist or a counselor to talk to comes into play because then you're not unloading everything onto your loved ones who have their own plight. Not to say that you can't, you know, let them know what's going on with you and have conversation because I do believe a closed mouth does not get fed. People don't have the ability to just read what you got going on. So before you go straight to this person doesn't care, they're not there for me, whoop de doo. Journaling definitely matters, and I talk about that all the time too. You know, they may not understand or know fully all of what you got going on and how it's affecting you. You know what I mean? So I definitely encourage that. Perspective says very true. And the way I look at it when it comes to therapists, counselors, those type of things, they don't have no quote unquote, and this is just in general, outside of this conversation. They don't have a quote unquote dog in the race. You know, they're not gonna just tell you or say to you whatever sounds good or feels good to get you through in the moment. At least a good one won't. Because they're gonna be getting their money regardless, you know? And they don't know you from Joe. And they're not gonna run your stuff back when mad day comes. I have lots of them from my life. Chef, I could write a book. I can write a book. I was just talking about, I think it was a live I did last week, how I keep journals at work and I keep them at home. And how I had just finished up my work, one of my work journal that I had started like the middle of February. So now I'm on to my newer one. And I was also talking about how when you do journal and when it's time to sit down and really reflect, because that's the only real way to really get the clarity that one needs. You have to have the ability to take a step back and just reflect. And when you journal heavy and then you go back and look at that journal, it's very different. It's very interesting, especially if you find yourself going back looking at pages of your journal, and you very well may not even be in that same space that you was when you was writing that stuff down. It's different and very interesting. Very interesting. But yeah, I don't feel like this type of grief is really discussed. And hopefully anybody that's experiencing this type of grief, they have a good support system and they are a strong-willed person. Because it does hit different. I don't care what nobody says. My life path was supposed to be a writer. I dig you, Chef. I love writing. And it's a form of it's a low key, high key form of therapy for me and a great way to channel my energy. Cause otherwise, ooh wee, ooh wee. Hey Johnny, good morning. Words matter. Words matter. But only meaningful words. I don't like when people say things just to say things. So words definitely matter, but meaningful words matter. I don't like when people just say things for the hoot of it. Yeah, they really do. And more people need to understand it and acknowledge that. And what I've learned is the people are the ones who don't understand or acknowledge the type of power that words hold are the ones that hate to be held to account. Ooh. They are the ones who are likely or more likely to hate or have a strong disdain for people that hold them to account, you know? Because words don't matter to them. So to them, it shouldn't matter if they just saying stuff for the hoot of it. I hope you guys were able to get something out of this live. And like I always say, and that's regardless if it's something that you are experiencing in your current life. It very well may be something that you may experience in your future. Or it may be something that you experienced, but you just didn't have a full understanding as to what it was that you were experiencing, you know? And when it comes to feeling ambiguous grief when it comes to relationships, whether that is a friendship that is no longer a thing, you're no longer with your partner or your spouse. It may very well be a family member that cut you off or you cut them off. You know what I mean? And there's times where you might miss that person and you're having these feelings all crazy, but you're not bugging for feeling that way. There's nothing wrong with feeling that way. Where the problem lies is what it is you choose to do with those feelings or about those feelings and how you choose to express those feelings. That's where the problem lies, not the fact that you have those feelings. So I definitely want to highlight that. Let me see. On here, it's difficult to relay what you are trying to relay because they read into what what you are saying. And like I had said last night when I did my live, I'm not here to fill in the pieces for people or provide the missing puzzles for people in regards to my business. I'm here to spark some in folks to try to make them or have them want to be a better them, have a better quality of living. Because it's like you can live, but it's like, what is the quality of that life that you are living? Those type of things. They can read into whatever they want to. And I dig it though. And that's why I said I really ain't got no business in the sector that we are in if we're gonna keep it a bean. But I know there's good people that are in that sector. Because instead of trying to, like you just said, try instead of trying to get what they can get out of it to make them a better them or improve the quality of their living, they're hyper focused on trying to figure out parts of it that don't got nothing to do with them and won't ever have nothing to do with them. And that's counterproductive. Chef said people can only perceive to their own understanding. You know, it is what it is. Take from it what you may. Happy Friday, via she and chat. We made it, y'all. Yes, we did. We did make it. Like I always say, we'll have a live on Wednesday, and I'm talking about how we're halfway there. Then we'll blink twice and we're there. Look at God. And not everybody made it today, but we did, and that's a blessing. Praying that you all have a wonderful day. Settle for nothing less. Yeah, in the words of the Ron, anything less than that would be uncivilized. Anything less than that, Lace, would be uncivilized. The goal is always to be well. They probably do need to come to the office, Lace. Damn those typos. I am working and listening. Listen, I'll be butchering words, but I know what they mean though. That's so funny. Glad you can decipher what I am saying. Yeah, definitely picking up what you're putting down. Where's Johnny? Let's see. I'm all over YouTube. I'm not necessarily this sector. There are some very intelligent people amongst us. Agreed. And that's why I said it's not the app itself. Same with any social media app or whatever. It's not the app itself. It's what one chooses to do with it. It's what one chooses to do with it. And it says, "Hey, good morning." It says, "Not only are we there, we made it." Yes, we did. To quote the great Rihanna, "Shine bright like a diamond." Okay. Okay. I caught me a big old ew, but I did it. Ew. Atlanta Braves matter to you. To you, chef. We're going to talk about baseball later. Oh no, you know how I feel like about that. There may be bugs on some of you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on V. I'm out of here. Thank y'all for coming. Bye.